The news keeps coming fast and furious for Unrivaled, which we've talked about on this podcast, is really important. Alex Bazzell is here to tell us why, in all the ways, professionally, personally, and from a business perspective. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. More than 300,000 of you showed up in October 2024 alone to show up the way we show up for you 6 days a week, talking about the past, present, and future of women's basketball. And of course, it is not just me, it is our entire team over at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every single month. We have fanned out across the country, and you guys have responded to more than 3.5 million readers in October 2024 alone. Means a lot to us. Thank you. If we mean a lot to you, subscribe, support the work. $9 a month, $72 a year. You get them all into your inbox. It's just the steady flow of incredible reporting over at thenexthoops.com. And I'll tell you something, Alex Bazzell and Unrivaled, keeping us very busy reporting on a significant, and again, we're going to get into why, but I think it's important that people understand this is as important a development in women's basketball, I would argue, since the very start of the WNBA. That's how big I think this is. That's how much it matters. Segment one, we're going to talk about how it came to be. Segment two, we're going to talk about the business part of this. And segment three, what does it mean personally? Alex, of course, married to the great Napheesa Collier, who's been on the show before, one of the founders of Unrivaled. But Alex, it's always good to chat with you. And I want to just start by having you take us through what's that origin story? Where does the seed of this begin?
Yeah, well, it's good to be here, Howard. I appreciate you giving me the time. But, really the origin, I came up and built my resume on the NBA side working with players. And obviously from essentially June until September, players are going to Miami, LA, New York. They're training, they're playing pickup, they're together, they're working on their bodies, they're doing brand activations. So that's the life I came from and knew. And of course, at the same time, I was married to Napheesa. So I saw both of those compare and contrast of the off season. So, listen, we, at the end of the day, we're a basketball family. I think what we have really enjoyed is just the overall growth of women's basketball, since even Napheesa's been in the WNBA in 2019 up until now. You've seen the progression, you've seen COVID, you've seen everything, right? In a very short span for her. So I think for us, it was really about how do we provide a solution for some of the top players in the world where they could stay home, rest their bodies, be around family, enjoy the holidays, right? Like family stuff first. Mm-hmm. So we really kind of built this as a perfect schedule of what would the players want? How much time would they want home? How much time do they need mentally and physically to break? And then at the same time, you want to sharpen your skills. And Napheesa has been very adamant, even playing at Fener in Istanbul last year. You could see what that did for the start of her season and what that did throughout the year as she was fresh. She was sharp. She had worked on her game. She didn't get rusty. So it was really a combination of all those things, Howard. And then, quite honestly, when we decided we wanted to do this, everyone talks about, let's just start our own league. And it's pretty far-fetched. And then you decide to do it. One of the first calls we made was Breanna Stewart. And, knowing at the time, number one, she was the market maker overseas. Mm-hmm. She commanded top dollar there. At the time, she's since added to her resume, which is not unlike Stewie, but you go after the best of the best and you start there, right? And it was a conversation that I had with her and Marta, her partner, and her wife, and we sat down, and this was 2022 at Christmas time in New York over a glass of wine and talked about what the concept was. And she was all in right away. So getting buy-in from someone like her right away, where keep in mind, Howard, Napheesa was still coming into who she was as a player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't Napheesa today of, finals and all those things that are great. But so that was step number one, was just the conviction from Stewie. And then from there, it was, we have to talk to a number of people. Like, you can't just launch a league and pay someone a lot of money and hope it works out. You got to go talk to industry experts. You got to talk to team owners, which I've talked to a number of W team owners, the league itself with Kathy and Phil Cook, and they've been extremely supportive. So it's taken a while, but it's been a short while if you're in our world, because it's all day, every day. We're spent on Zooms, we're spending conversations, we're spending pitching brands and investors. So we needed all the time we could have, but it led us to this point today, which is really exciting.
It's a fast, slow on-ramp. Like you said, there's so much to do, but also to be able to put this together in what amounts to about 2 years from start to, from glass of wine to a league that, again, and the reason we'll get even more into in segment 2, has runway and the sustainability that has been missing in women's sports leagues and startups. Quite literally, the deal from a media rights perspective alone is something that you have never seen in a women's sports space. Of course, we've never been in a women's sports moment that we have here in 2024. But I guess I wonder, was that the moment that it felt particularly real? Was there sort of an aha moment where you're saying, oh, wow, this really locks things into place?
Yeah, I think certainly, with any league, media rights is the ultimate golden goose you're chasing, right? For multiple reasons. People need to know you exist. People need to know how to find you, fans everywhere. And you need to build a runway of financial stability to make sure that you can pay players aggressively, that you can do the things outside of paying them, resources wise, staffing, recovery, living, all the things that you don't think about when you just talk about a player's compensation. Is we have a responsibility to kind of set the precedents for their offseason and what the expectations are for them. But yeah, when with us, it was such a great conversation. We were so blessed from the start. We have two major people who've been involved and invested, from John Skipper, who was president of ESPN, and then David Levy in Horizon Sports and Entertainment. And David was, ran Turner for years. Right. So those two guys who used to compete for media rights deals came together on a women's basketball property, right? And I think, to your point, it shows where the space is at. Women's sports is not as saturated as men's sports. And I think there's a hunger and interest that we've seen from brands, media, to want to get involved and try to find that entry point, because there's true ROI there for people investing. So with Turner, it came together pretty quickly. Of course, we were at Paris in the Olympics. I had a chance to sit down with Louise Silberwasser, who's the TNT CEO, who is incredibly supportive. And you have to get people who can see the vision, right? Because at the start, we're a new property, we're a new product. We're not 5-on-5. We're not even traditional 3-on-3. Right. So you have to understand that, okay, there's a vision here. There's great talent here. You're betting on that talent and you're willing to take that swing. And I think that's what we're most excited about, to partner with the partners we have, is they're really stepping up to the plate before they know what the actual product will be. I'm very bullish on the product because that's where I come from, but that's what's probably most exciting, is just you're betting on the talent, and thankfully we have quite a bit of it.
And so we live in that world, so we understand the star power here. Do you think that early buy-in from Fee, from Stewie, helped everyone else to understand in the space, particularly players, that this is going to be a real thing right away? Yeah.
Well, 100%, because you can negotiate all you want. You can go to the agents, you can do all these things, but it's a peer-to-peer connection that most people don't understand. And, they together were jumping on FaceTimes and recruiting players, Jewel and Satu and Jackie and, everyone, right? And that's the pitch. It's about the players collectively coming together and doing something really innovative and cool. So without that, it's just hard to do. It's probably what separated us. It's not just the fact that we have great players, but we're led by these players. the ownership structure, majority of this league is owned by the women. And
Right.
that's what people don't understand. It's like, yes, they play, but they're owners, right? They get to control the outcome together. And it's such a unique seat to sit in. You know, we have such a privilege. We talk about it all the time. This is going to continue to morph into what the identity is. It's been known as Breanna and Napheesa's league, but quite honestly, Howard, like all 34, hopefully soon to be 36 players have ownership, right? And we answer to them collectively. We don't have a union. We don't have team owners. We're all on the same rowboat rowing together. So that's where I think why it has such potential and why people are betting on it, is because it's the players at the end of the day.
It's fascinating. And so I want to get more into that because again, the model, the structure, like you said, this is different, but it has implications for how the entire space operates. And so more with Alex Bazzell after this, but first, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel. And FanDuel has an offer for America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just a word to the wise, don't bet on the New York Giants that I root for on a regular basis. That's been a nightmare and an utter disaster. But FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL. You can get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and say, oh my God, Tommy DeVito hasn't completed a pass for the entire half. Yeah, well, that probably is going to happen this weekend. And you can find it all at FanDuel.com today. Again, bet $5. If you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Yeah, not a lot of NFL playoffs to watch if you're a Giants fan, so it's perfect. Everyone's set up to watch Unrivaled instead. Back here with Alex Bazzell talking about Unrivaled, and you mentioned this before the break, but it's interesting to me. I kind of want to ask it in a macro sense. The fact that the players own a stake in this league is really significant, and it's a different set of parameters from what you have in the WNBA, where A, there are team owners, and B, there's therefore, an active effort on the CBA side. It strikes me, though, that this also provides players not just safety, comfort, and security, but a potential model to negotiate from. I know, you've had those conversations with the WNBA side. From a league calendar perspective, this is kind of perfect in terms of the setup. Is it also potentially a helpful thing in a women's sports environment where players are taking more control? We've talked about NWSL and the agreement they made with the NWSLPA to give a sense of maybe a different way of doing things in the WNBA as well.
Well, I think like anything, like let's look at football, right? When you look at new contracts being negotiated, when Patrick Mahomes, he's got to negotiate the highest salary because it's a ripple effect for all the quarterbacks in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So I think naturally what we're excited about is we are resetting the market. Right. Now, we aren't involved in any of those negotiations. And what we've always said, and is true, is we don't want to disrupt the growth of the sport, right? We are not, in all due respect, Live Golf, right? Well, that's not who we are. But we are paying aggressively and we are resetting the market, and we're proud of those things. And I think inevitably, just the growth the WNBA has been in since the CBA was negotiated back in 2020, these contracts are going to go higher, which is great. I think WNBA wants it. We want those things because quite honestly, we have 30 of the most valuable players to that model, 30 of the most valuable players to that model. And I think everyone wants the same thing, which is stay home, stay visible, stay rested. The more that their brands are growing is an indirect growth for them. And quite honestly, what we tell everyone is, the WNBA is going to keep thriving. It's a free marketing engine for Unrivaled too, right? So I think the place that we're trying to get to in the total ecosystem is that we become part of that routine in the off season, right? Regardless of how much money you're making. I've seen NBA guys who are now close to worth $1 billion. They show up and they train and they play and they do things to stay sharp, right? So that's where I think, Howard, we could be a perfect mesh together. But when it comes to the CBA, of course, like the players are always looking for that edge to figure out what can they pull up to help hopefully get a great deal. So time will tell. It's an interesting.
I mean, to your point, and just like people can miss us both with this garbage, this idea that if players are not forced to go overseas and play 12 months a year, and that's not the model, and they have choices, that they're not going to work tirelessly on the game. These are the best players in the world. But specifically to that point, I joked with a lot of people at the WNBA finals, like, oh, was this just essentially an unrivaled promotional event? Because to have Fee and Stewie, I'm sure that, not that you could have planned it, but you couldn't have planned it any better to have that. This is, and for those who are maybe newer to the space, this is the thing that the conversation was always about. How do you keep the focus on these players during the offseason? Well, now that's true times two. That's true times the Unrivaled offseason, which is the WNBA, and the WNBA offseason with Unrivaled. And I wonder how much it feels like this calendar is not only the one that makes the most sense, but it even allows for growth of the WNBA season footprint itself. The league keeps going up from 34 to 36 to 40 to 44. I am not convinced that 44 is the high end of the number of games. You can't grow it much beyond 44 without expanding the footprint of when people are playing, or else you're going to burn people out.
Yeah.
Do you see it as, essentially comfortable fitting within that larger calendar for the WNBA, simply because of where you guys are positioned? You said you're still evolving, and that makes perfect sense. You're, haven't even started year one, but boy, January to March, boy, that sounds perfect around the WNBA expanded calendar, doesn't it?
It's perfect because most people, when you really peel back the schedule, and then we had to go through that to recruit players, of like,
Sure.
You don't realize how long your offseason truly is. It's a longer offseason. If you play in our finals and the W finals, you still have a longer offseason than any other league in the world other than the NFL. And those guys, of course, they're signing up for just getting in car accidents essentially every week, right? Yeah. So that's what's cool is the WNBA, I bet if I had to guess, 50 games is probably their peak of what they could get to, because quite honestly, like, bodies aren't built for that, right? They're not built for 80 plus. You're seeing it with the NBA guys right now. And I think too, you have to toe the line of being too much in the marketplace for fans. Like, what really helps the WNBA is it's a shortened season, and same with us. You tune in for 14 regular season games per team in our league. WNBA is at 44. Much more than that, it just becomes harder and harder to, set time aside to watch it consistently. And I think that's part of the issue that even the NBA runs into at times. So I think it's a perfect mixture. I think these players, they want enough time to decompress and get away from it. And quite honestly, Howard, like, you're coming off a long season where you also had the Olympics.
That's right.
So that's where it's the perfect calendar right now. Inevitably, players want to make more. The WNBA wants to make more. Our league wants to make more. Well, the only way you do that is you add games, you add nights, you add venues, right? You add teams. So you got to just find that balance ultimately and make sure it's a great product for the fans.
The men's side. So like you said, you alluded to this, and I wrote about it last week over at the 9, that effectively something closer to a true 50-50 calendar partnership with the NBA is going to make a lot of sense. You expand the calendar out, you have 50 games, maybe you go to 50 or 60 on the NBA side. And, by having that calendar in place, and not to mention having the ratings that support it, that as more and more people are watching the WNBA games, the NBA and what the NBA writ large is delivering to its TV partners can end up being a true 50-50, with those of us who care about the women's game primarily having Unrivaled as a place to be watching at the same time. So it all makes perfect sense, and will be fascinating to see sort of that growth, that evolution. You guys obviously in a place to do it. You also alluded to what it does personally. And so when we get back, it's going to break my heart, but we're going to mention Mila. We're going to talk about what it is to live the women's basketball Unrivaled experience in segment 3. Back with more with Alex Bazzell right after this. I'm Howard Megdal. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Prize Picks, and Prize Picks offers the opportunity to play daily fantasy on a regular basis, something that we really enjoy, especially in the world of women's basketball. They have NCAA women's basketball. They have no shortage of opportunities to win more than 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks by using Prize Picks. You can even mix sports, a lot of different things you can do. How do you do it? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineups. Again, download the app today, use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, last question here for Alex, because you've got a busy day running a league here, but just from this perspective alone, you have America's most adorable toddler in Mila, who we get to see every chance we get to cover. How much more have the three of you gotten to spend time together because of the setup of here in Unrivaled?
I think that's been the most enjoyable part. Like most people don't realize, but when I was working with a number of NBA players, I would pretty much just be in LA during the summertime, which of course, same time Napheesa is playing in her season. So I wasn't able to be around as much as I wanted to. And then, as Mila got older, this was an easy decision to be made, to where I'm always around, I'm always present. For me, I get to take a back seat during the pinnacle of Napheesa's career. I think for me, that's the choice that you have to make to give up, right? You have to find a way to be a great partner. And certainly I have one of the most accommodating and low maintenance wives that you could have, let alone someone of her magnitude and popularity. So, and I think it just speaks to, her character, of why she's positioned perfectly to be one of the main people to launch this league, is because it's not about her ever, right? It's about the group. And I think that's what I'm just most proud of, to have a partner just as humble with the humility that she possesses. So it's been an unbelievable experience, Howard, to just be around her, watch her grow throughout her career, also watch Mila start understanding more that her mom plays basketball, that this is, she is constantly saying, "Go Lynx." Even any time we go around Minneapolis, Mila's catching Lynx logos around the city. I don't think she's understood yet that Sab has broke Mama's heart and is a reason she doesn't have a ring, and we're not going to talk about that yet. So it's been cool. It's for Fee and I, it's so great to have Mila around all these great women who have now, just skyrocketed in popularity, and now they're the pinnacle of sports. It's so cool to have those kind of people around Mila, to be great influences to inspire her, whether it's on the court or off the court or wherever she decides to do.
It really matters. And I just have to note, Gino, Cheryl, and you have now all referred to Fee as low maintenance, which I think is a very amusing combination. So Alex Bazzell, we'll be talking a lot more about this on this podcast. This is a really big deal. Congratulations on all you're doing already. And to our listeners, thank you for making us your first listen every day. Be back with you tomorrow. Until then, I'm Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.